When gunmen opened fire in the hospital waiting room, security guard James didn't run. He threw himself between the shooter and innocent families, taking 3 bullets to save 6 lives. 48 hours later, his doorbell rang with visitors who would change everything. Sometimes heroes are born in split seconds. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. James Martinez had been working as a hospital security guard for 8 years. It wasn't the most exciting job in the world, but it paid the bills and gave him good health insurance for his 10-year-old daughter, Sophia. That was all that mattered to him. Every morning, James would drop Sophia off at school, give her a kiss on the forehead and tell her the same thing. Be good, study hard, and remember that Daddy loves you more than all the stars in the sky. Sophia would giggle and say, I love you more than all the fish in the ocean, Daddy. It was their special ritual, one they had started when Sophia's mother died in a car accident 3 years ago. Those words had become their way of saying goodbye each day, never knowing what life might bring. On Tuesday morning, October 15th, James arrived at Metropolitan General Hospital for his usual 7 a.m. shift. The hospital was busy as always. Doctors and nurses moved quickly through the hallways, patients waited in the emergency room, and families sat nervously in waiting areas. James loved his job more than most people realized. He wasn't just a security guard, he was a protector, a friendly face for scared patients, and sometimes the only person who had time to listen to worried families. Morning, James, called out Dr. Sarah Chin, one of the emergency room doctors. How's Sophia doing in school? She's doing great. Document got an A on her science test yesterday. She wants to be a doctor like you when she grows up. Dr. Chin smiled. She's got a good role model in her father. You should be proud. James felt a warm feeling in his chest. Despite all the hardships of being a single parent, moments like these reminded him that he was doing something right. The morning passed quietly. James walked his usual rounds, checked the parking garage, and helped an elderly man find his way to the cardiology department. It was shaping up to be a normal day. At 2:30 p.m., James was standing near the main entrance when he heard shouting from the emergency room waiting area. He turned to see what was happening and felt his blood turn to ice. A man in dark clothes was walking through the waiting room with a gun in his hand. People were screaming and running in all directions. The man looked angry and desperate, waving the gun wildly. James's training kicked in immediately. His first thought wasn't about his own safety. It was about all the innocent people in that waiting room. Patients in wheelchairs who couldn't run. Elderly people who moved slowly. Children who were too scared to move at all. Everyone get down. James shouted as he ran toward the gunman. Stay low and move toward the exits. The gunman turned toward James. He was young, maybe in his 20s, with wild eyes and shaking hands. James could see that this was someone who was hurting, someone who felt desperate and out of options. Stay back, the gunman yelled. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will if I have to. James stopped about 10 feet away from the man, his hands raised peacefully. Behind the gunman, James could see Dr. Chen helping patients evacuate through a side door. But there were still too many people in the waiting room, people who were scared, confused, and in danger. What's your name? James asked calmly, trying to keep his voice steady. What does it matter? The man replied, his voice breaking. It matters because I want to help you. My name is James. I'm not a cop, I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to talk. James could see that the man was crying now. Whatever had brought him to this point, it wasn't evil, it was pain. They won't listen to me, the gunman said. The doctors here, they won't help my mom. She's dying and they say there's nothing they can do because we don't have insurance. They're just going to let her die. James felt his heart break for this young man. He understood desperation. He understood what it felt like to be powerless when someone you loved was in danger. What's your mom's name? James asked gently. Elena. Elena Rodriguez. She's upstairs in room 314. She has cancer, but they say the treatment is too expensive. They're sending her home to die. James nodded. I hear you. You love your mom and you're scared. I get that. I have a daughter and I would do anything for her too. The gunman looked at James with surprised eyes. For a moment, the weapon lowered slightly. But this isn't the way, James continued. These people in the waiting room, they're not the ones making those decisions. They're just here because they're sick and scared, just like your mom. James took a small step forward. Let me help you. Let me talk to the doctors about your mom. There are programs, there are ways to get help. But first, we need to make sure no one gets hurt. The gunman looked around at all the people still in the waiting room. Some were hiding behind chairs, others were frozen with fear. An elderly woman in a wheelchair was crying quietly. I don't know what else to do, the young man said, his voice barely a whisper. You can trust me, James said. Let these people go and I'll stay with you. We'll figure this out together. For a moment it seemed like the plan might work. The gunman looked at James with something like hope in his eyes. But then something went wrong. Another security guard, new and inexperienced, came around the corner with his weapon drawn. Drop your weapon, the new guard shouted. The gunman panicked. His finger tightened on the trigger and James saw what was about to happen. The gun was pointing toward a section of the waiting room where a mother was huddled with her two small children. James didn't think. He just moved. He threw himself between the gunman and the family, spreading his arms wide to shield as many people as possible. The first bullet hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around. The second caught him in the chest. The third hit his leg, dropping him to his knees. But James didn't fall backward. Even as the bullets tore through his body, he stayed between the gunman and the innocent people behind him. The gunman, horrified by what he had done, dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Other security guards and police officers swarmed into the area. Dr. Chin ran to James's side, pressing her hands against his wounds to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, James, she said, her voice shaking. You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. But James was thinking about Sophia. His little girl who was sitting in her fourth-grade classroom right now, probably working on math problems, with no idea that her daddy was bleeding on a hospital floor. Sophia, James whispered. Take care of Sophia. You're going to take care of Sophia yourself, Dr. Chin said firmly. Don't you dare give up on me. The next few hours were a blur of surgery, machines, and worried voices. James slipped in and out of consciousness, sometimes dreaming about Sophia, sometimes reliving those terrible moments in the waiting room. When he finally woke up, it was Thursday morning. He had been unconscious for almost 2 days. His body was wrapped in bandages, and he could barely move without pain shooting through his chest and shoulder. A nurse was checking his monitors when she noticed he was awake. Mr. Martinez. Thank goodness. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, James managed to say. His voice was hoarse and weak. Where's Sophia? Is my daughter okay? She's fine, the nurse assured him. She's been staying with Mrs. Patterson from your apartment building. The hospital social worker arranged it. She's been here every day waiting for you to wake up. James felt tears in his eyes. Mrs. Patterson was their elderly neighbor who sometimes watched Sophia when James had to work late. She was a kind woman, but James hated that his daughter was going through this. Can I see her? The doctor wants to examine you first, but yes, she'll be here soon. Dr. Chin came in a few minutes later, looking tired but relieved. You scared us, James. You lost a lot of blood. The bullet in your chest just missed your heart by inches. What about the gunman? What about his mother? Dr. Chin looked surprised. Even after what he did to you, you're worried about them? He wasn't evil, document. He was just scared and desperate. His mom is dying and he didn't know how to save her. The young man's name is Miguel Rodriguez. He's in jail now, but he's been asking about you constantly. He feels terrible about what happened. And his mother? We're working on it. Your story has gotten a lot of attention. People want to help the Rodriguez family now. Sometimes it takes a tragedy to remind us of our humanity. James nodded weakly. That's good. That's really good. Dr. Chin studied James's face. You know, what you did was incredible. You saved at least 6 people's lives by shielding them. The mother with her children, the elderly woman in the wheelchair, an older man who couldn't move fast enough. They're all alive because of you. Before James could respond, there was a soft knock on his hospital room door. Sophia peeked her head in, her eyes red from crying but bright with joy. Daddy? James felt his heart nearly burst as his daughter ran to his bedside. She was careful not to hurt him, but she hugged him as tightly as she could. I was so scared, Daddy. They said you were hurt really bad. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm going to be okay. Mrs. Patterson said you were a hero. She said you saved people. James looked into his daughter's eyes that looked so much like her mother's. I just did what I had to do to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Sometimes that's what heroes do. Are you going to be okay to come home? It might take a little while, but yes, I'll be home soon. Sophia spent the rest of the day with James, telling him about school, about how worried she had been, and about all the people who had been asking about him. Daddy, there are reporters outside. They want to talk to you. And Mrs. Patterson says people have been calling and bringing food and cards. James was overwhelmed. He had just done what felt right in the moment. He never expected all this attention. That evening, after Sophia had gone home with Mrs. Patterson, James was resting when he heard voices outside his room. Dr. Chin was talking to someone in the hallway. He's awake now, but he's still very weak. Please keep it brief. James wondered who was visiting at this hour. The door opened and 3 people walked in. A well-dressed woman in a business suit, a man in a police uniform, and someone else James didn't recognize. Mr. Martinez, the woman said, I'm Detective Sarah Williams. This is Chief of Police Robert Johnson, and this is Mayor Patricia Davis. James tried to sit up straighter, wincing with pain. Please don't strain yourself, the mayor said kindly. We just wanted to come and personally thank you for what you did. I don't understand, James said. I just did my job. Chief Johnson shook his head. No, sir. Your job was to maintain security and call for backup when there was trouble. What you did went far beyond that. You risked your life to protect complete strangers. Those people weren't strangers, James said quietly. They were patients, families, people who came to the hospital looking for help. They were under my protection. Detective Williams stepped forward. Mr. Martinez, we've reviewed all the security footage. When you threw yourself in front of that gunman, you saved at least 6 lives. Maybe more. The trajectory of those bullets would have hit multiple people if you hadn't intervened. The mayor nodded. The city wants to honor you with the Medal of Valor. It's the highest honor we can give to a civilian. James felt uncomfortable with all the praise. What about Miguel Rodriguez? What's going to happen to him? The 3 officials exchanged glances. That's actually part of why we're here, Detective Williams said. The young man has been cooperating fully. He's expressed genuine remorse for what happened. Given the circumstances, his mother's illness, his desperation, and the fact that he didn't intend to hurt anyone, the district attorney is considering a reduced charge. He needs help, not just punishment, James said. He needs counseling and his family needs support. We agree, the mayor said. In fact, your actions have inspired the community. There's been an outpouring of support for both you and the Rodriguez family. People want to help pay for Mrs. Rodriguez's treatment. James felt tears in his eyes. That's what I hoped would happen. Chief Johnson leaned forward. There's something else. The hospital has offered you a position as head of security when you recover. It comes with a significant pay increase and better benefits. I don't need a promotion for doing the right thing, James protested. This isn't about reward, the mayor explained. This is about recognizing that you have the kind of character and judgment we need in leadership positions. You stayed calm under pressure, you tried to de-escalate the situation, and when violence became inevitable, you protected innocent people at the cost of your own safety. After the officials left, James lay in his hospital bed thinking about everything that had happened. 2 days ago, he had been just another security guard, worrying about paying bills and taking care of his daughter. Now apparently he was a hero. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a father who had done what any parent would do, protect children and families from harm. The next morning brought another surprise. Dr. Chin came into his room with a huge smile on her face. James, you have some visitors. The door opened and the woman with her 2 children walked in, the same family he had shielded from the gunman's bullets. Mr. Martinez, the woman said, her voice shaking with emotion. I'm Maria Santos. These are my children, Carlos and Isabella. The children, who looked to be about 6 and 8 years old, were holding drawings. We made these for you, little Isabella said, holding up a picture of a man in a security uniform with angel wings. You saved us, Carlos added. Mama says you're an angel. Maria Santos had tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you. When I saw that gun pointing at us, I thought my children were going to die. And then you were there and you put yourself between us and danger. James felt overwhelmed with emotion. How could I not? You were protecting your children. I have a daughter too. I understand. What are their names? Isabella asked. My daughter's name is Sophia. She's 10 years old. Can we meet her? Carlos asked. We want to thank her too. Thank her? Why? Maria answered. Because she raised a hero. Because she shared her daddy with us when we needed him most. Over the next few days, James had many visitors. The elderly woman in the wheelchair came with her son to thank him. Other patients who had been in the waiting room stopped by to check on him. His co-workers from the hospital brought flowers and cards. But the visit that surprised him most came on Friday evening, exactly 48 hours after he had first woken up. James was dozing when he heard voices in the hallway. It sounded like a lot of people. He wondered what was happening. Dr. Chin came in, barely able to contain her excitement. James, you need to see this. She helped him into a wheelchair and pushed him to the window that looked out over the hospital's main entrance. Below, hundreds of people were gathered. They were holding candles, signs, and balloons. Some of the signs read, "Thank you, James, our hero," and "Guardian Angel." "What is this?" James asked, overwhelmed. "It's a vigil," Dr. Chin explained. "People wanted to show their support for you and for everything you represent. Look, there's Sophia." James spotted his daughter in the crowd, standing with Mrs. Patterson. She was holding a sign that read, "My daddy is my hero." But then James saw something that took his breath away. Standing near the front of the crowd was Miguel Rodriguez, the young man who had shot him. He was flanked by 2 police officers, but he wasn't in handcuffs. He was holding a sign too, but James couldn't read it from this distance. "They let him out?" James asked. "He made bail," Dr. Chin explained. "His community raised the money. And he asked permission to come tonight. He wanted to be part of this." James watched as Miguel stepped forward to speak to the crowd. Even through the closed window, James could see that the young man was crying. Dr. Chin had brought a radio so James could hear what was happening outside. Miguel's voice came through, shaky but determined. "My name is Miguel Rodriguez. I'm the person who shot this good man. I want everyone to know that Mr. Martinez saved my life too, even though I didn't deserve it." The crowd was completely silent. "When I came to this hospital with a gun, I was angry and desperate. My mother is dying and I felt like no one cared. But Mr. Martinez, he listened to me. He treated me like a human being even when I was acting like a monster." Miguel's voice broke. "He could have tackled me, he could have tried to hurt me, but instead he tried to talk to me. He tried to help me. And when I panicked and started shooting, he didn't think about his own safety. He thought about protecting innocent people." James felt tears rolling down his cheeks. Because of what Mr. Martinez did, because of his sacrifice, people started paying attention. "My mother is getting the treatment she needs now. People are helping my family. But more than that, I learned what real courage looks like. It looks like choosing to protect others even when it costs you everything." Miguel held up his sign so everyone could see it. It read, "I'm sorry. Thank you. I will be better." "Mr. Martinez," Miguel continued, "I know you can probably hear this. I want you to know that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the kind of man you are. The kind of man who thinks about others before himself. The kind of man who chooses love over fear." The crowd began to applaud and many people were crying. Then Sophia stepped forward. Mrs. Patterson lifted her up so everyone could see her. "My daddy always tells me that love is stronger than fear," Sophia said into a microphone someone handed her. "He says that when we love people we want to protect them and take care of them. My daddy loves everyone, even people he doesn't know. That's why he's my hero." James was crying openly now. His 10-year-old daughter understood something that many adults never learn. That love is what makes ordinary people capable of extraordinary things. Dr. Chin squeezed James's shoulder. "The whole city is talking about you, James. Not just because you took 3 bullets but because of how you handled the whole situation. You saw a hurting young man instead of just a threat. You tried to help him even while he was pointing a gun at you." "His mother," James said suddenly. "How is Elena Rodriguez?" "She's responding well to treatment. The community raised enough money to pay for everything she needs. She's going to make it." James felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. This was why it had all been worth it. Not for the medals or the recognition but because lives were saved. Because a desperate young man learned that there was another way. Because a mother would live to see her grandchildren grow up. "There's something else," Dr. Chin said. "Miguel wants to meet with you when you're ready. He wants to apologize in person." James nodded. "I'd like that. I want to make sure he's okay." "You want to make sure he's okay?" Dr. Chin looked amazed. "James, this kid shot you 3 times. He's somebody's son," James replied simply. "He made a terrible mistake, but he's not a terrible person. Everyone deserves a second chance." A week later, James was strong enough to meet with Miguel. The young man came to his hospital room accompanied by his mother, Elena, who was thin from her illness but getting stronger every day. Miguel could barely look at James when he first walked in. His mother, however, went straight to James's bedside and took his hand. "Señor Martinez," she said in accented English, "my son told me what you did. Not just how you protected people but how you tried to help him. How you listened to him when he was desperate and scared." James looked at Miguel, who was standing near the door with his head down. "Miguel," James said gently, "come here. Sit down." The young man reluctantly approached and sat in the chair next to the bed. "Look at me," James said. Miguel slowly raised his eyes. They were filled with shame and pain. I forgive you, James said simply. Miguel broke down crying. How can you forgive me? I almost killed you. I almost left your daughter without a father. Because holding on to anger would hurt me more than those bullets did, James replied. And because I can see that you're sorry. Real sorry. That means something. Elena Rodriguez was crying too. Senor Martinez, because of what you did, because of your sacrifice, my son learned something important. He learned about real courage. And people helped us when they heard our story. I'm going to live. My son has a chance to make his life better. James turned to Miguel. What are you going to do now? I'm going to college, Miguel said, wiping his eyes. Community college first, then hopefully university. I want to study social work. I want to help people who are desperate like I was. I want to help them find better solutions than violence. That's a good plan, James said. And Miguel? What happened doesn't define who you are. What you do next, that's what defines you. Miguel nodded. Would you be willing to stay in touch? I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to have someone to talk to. Someone who believes I can be better. Of course, James said. We all need people who believe in us. 2 months later, James was back at work as the head of hospital security. His wounds had healed, though he still had some pain in his shoulder. But the emotional healing had been complete. The first day back, he was greeted by applause from the entire hospital staff. There was a banner in the lobby that read, "Welcome back, hero." But James was more interested in the changes that had been made since the shooting. The hospital had instituted new programs to help uninsured patients. They had hired social workers to help families navigate financial difficulties. They had created a crisis intervention team to help people who were struggling with desperation and anger. These changes are because of you, Dr. Chin told him. Your actions that day showed us that we needed to do better, to care more, to pay attention to people who are hurting before they reach a breaking point. James also learned that Miguel had been true to his word. He was doing well in college and had started volunteering at a crisis helpline. The young man called James every week, updating him on his progress and asking for advice. Elena Rodriguez had finished her cancer treatment and was in remission. She had started a support group for other families dealing with serious illness and financial hardship. 6 months after the shooting, the city held the ceremony to give James the Medal of Valor. The auditorium was packed with people whose lives he had touched, not just that day but in the months since. Sophia sat in the front row, wearing her best dress and beaming with pride. Next to her sat the Santos family, the mother and children he had shielded from the bullets. Behind them were his co-workers, his neighbors, and dozens of other people who had been inspired by his story. When James walked to the podium to accept the medal, the entire audience stood and applauded for 5 full minutes. Thank you, he said when the applause finally died down. I'm honored by this recognition, but I want to be clear about something. I'm not a hero because I took 3 bullets. I'm not a hero because I have a medal. James looked out at the crowd, finding familiar faces, Miguel and Elena Rodriguez, Dr. Chin, the Santos family, and most importantly, Sophia. If I'm a hero, it's because I tried to see the humanity in everyone that day. I tried to see Miguel Rodriguez not as a monster, but as a scared young man who loved his mother and didn't know how to save her. I tried to see the people in that waiting room not as strangers, but as someone's children, someone's parents, someone's whole world. James paused, his voice getting emotional. Real heroism isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing love over fear, even when you're terrified. It's about believing that every person deserves compassion, even when they make terrible mistakes. It's about being willing to sacrifice for others, not because it's easy but because it's right. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. The real heroes are the doctors and nurses who work every day to save lives. The teachers who shape young minds. The parents who sacrifice everything for their children. The people who choose kindness when it would be easier to choose indifference. James looked directly at Sophia. The real heroes are the children who teach us that love is stronger than fear, that forgiveness is possible, and that every day is a chance to make the world a little bit better. As James finished his speech, the entire audience rose to their feet again. But this time they weren't just applauding him. They were applauding the truth he had spoken, the reminder that heroism lives in all of us, waiting for the moment when we choose to act. Later that evening, at the reception following the ceremony, James was surrounded by well-wishers when Miguel approached him. The young man looked healthy and confident, nothing like the desperate person who had walked into the hospital with a gun 8 months ago. Mr. Martinez, Miguel said, I wanted you to know that I got accepted to the university. I'm going to study psychology and social work. I want to work with people who are in crisis. James smiled and shook Miguel's hand. I'm proud of you, Miguel. Your mother would be proud too. She is proud. She's doing really well. The doctors say she's going to be fine. And how are you doing? Really doing? Miguel thought for a moment. I'm doing well. I still have hard days when I can't believe what I almost did. But then I remember what you taught me, that what defines us isn't our worst moment, but how we respond to our worst moment. You're going to help a lot of people, James said. You understand pain and desperation in a way that other counselors might not. You can reach people who are where you were. I hope so. I want to make sure that what happened to us, what I did to you, leads to something good in the world. As the evening wound down, James and Sophia walked home through the quiet streets of their neighborhood. Sophia was carrying the medal, turning it over in her hands and watching how it caught the light from the street lamps. Daddy, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Were you scared that day? When the man had the gun. James considered his answer carefully. Yes, I was scared. I was terrified. Then how were you brave? Because being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. Being brave means you do the right thing even when you are scared. I was scared, but I was more worried about protecting the people around me than I was about protecting myself. Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Is that what Mommy would have done? James felt his throat tighten with emotion. Your mother was the bravest person I ever knew. She would have done exactly what I did, probably without even thinking about it. I want to be brave like you and Mommy. You already are brave, Sophia. You were brave when Mommy died and we had to figure out how to take care of each other. You're brave every day when you're kind to other kids at school, when you stand up for people who are being picked on, when you choose to help instead of looking the other way. Really? Really? Heroism isn't just about big dramatic moments. It's about all the small choices we make every day to be good to each other. As they reached their apartment building, James thought about how much had changed since that terrible Tuesday afternoon. He had nearly died, but in losing his blood, he had gained so much more, a deeper sense of purpose, stronger connections with his community, and the knowledge that one moment of courage could ripple outward in ways he never could have imagined. Miguel Rodriguez was going to become a counselor who would help other desperate people find hope instead of violence. Elena Rodriguez was alive and helping other families navigate medical crises. The hospital had changed its policies to better serve struggling families. The Santos family had started volunteering with victim advocacy groups. Even the new security guard who had panicked that day had received proper training and was now an excellent officer. But most importantly, Sophia had learned that her father was someone who would risk everything to protect others, and that she carried that same capacity for love and courage in her own heart. As James tucked his daughter into bed that night, she looked up at him with the same serious expression she had worn as a little girl. Daddy, I'm proud that you're my hero. But I want you to know something else. What's that, sweetheart? You don't have to be shot to be my hero. You were my hero before that day and you'll be my hero even if nothing exciting ever happens again. You're my hero because you love people, because you take care of me, and because you teach me how to be good. James kissed Sophia's forehead, feeling tears in his eyes. I love you more than all the stars in the sky, Sophia. I love you more than all the fish in the ocean, Daddy. And I love you more than all the heroes and all the stories ever told. As James turned off the light and walked to his own room, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. 8 months ago, he had been just another single father, working hard and doing his best to raise his daughter right. One moment of violence had changed everything, but not in the way anyone might have expected. Instead of creating more pain and anger, it had created healing and hope. Instead of dividing the community, it had brought people together. Instead of teaching lessons about fear and hatred, it had taught lessons about love and forgiveness. James looked at the medal sitting on his dresser, but what made him truly proud wasn't the recognition. It was the phone call he had received that morning from Miguel's college advisor, telling him that Miguel was at the top of his class. It was the letter from Elena Rodriguez, saying that she was 6 months cancer-free. It was the report from Dr. Chin that the hospital's new patient advocacy program had helped over 200 families avoid financial crisis. Most of all, it was the knowledge that Sophia was growing up understanding that the most important thing in life isn't being safe or comfortable. It's being useful, being kind, and being willing to sacrifice for others when the moment demands it. The hero next door wasn't special because he was bulletproof. He was special because he understood that we are all connected, that protecting others is the highest calling any of us can have, and that sometimes the most ordinary people are called upon to do the most extraordinary things. And when that call comes, the only question that matters is, will you answer? James Martinez had answered. And in doing so he had reminded an entire community that love is stronger than fear, that forgiveness is possible, and that heroism lives in the heart of anyone willing to put others before themselves. The bullets had healed, but the impact of his courage would last forever.